Brad said last night it's on, he'd being assigned to an aircraft carrier. It's his regular assignment. He finds out, well, that's all right, doesn't.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December 23rd, 2024 accounts payable meeting. Before I ask for approval of minutes, a brief explanation. This is accounts payable and also year-end accounts payable for the Board of Commissioners and the budget, and that will come under other business, and we'll have a brief explanation of the difference that you'll see in the meeting today between the previous meetings as we're conducting business. So with the call to order, I'll now ask for approval of the minutes of the December 12th, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion by Commissioner Collins, supported by Administrator Murphy. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Now we will review the accounts payable ledgers that you received.
I have a few, and most of them are just informational stuff for me. Page 1, administration 1069. MISDU, what is that?
MISDU.
I know what that is.
Oh, that's a withholding that's from the payroll withhold. So it's a payroll withholding. Somebody's check was garnished for child.
Okay. Page 3, I believe. Circuit Court 2, 16919. If I can find it again. Damon and Sons CPR training. I looked at the amount of it. Is that for multiple people? Like the entire sheriff? I think it's sheriff department, is it?
I can see if it gave me a list of who was included on that. You want to give me a minute? I'll look it up.
What's,
Or do you want me to get back with you on that?
yeah, that's nothing important. I'm just wondering if it's
Okay.
a collective payment for several.
It's actually for a number of individuals within the circuit court that receive
Okay.
CPR training.
Page 4, 19121. I can find that here. Where'd it go? I had it. All I have is a question mark after. Where'd it go?
The refunded one, Terry, you're asking about?
Yes,
Okay.
I just have a question, Marcus.
Supposed to. Let's see if that's restitution or something. Let me look. I know restitution.
What is it that we're looking up?
Sorry,
What
Looks-
was your question on?
I just have a question mark, so I just didn't understand what it was.
Yeah, it's got a court case next to it, so let me look it up and see if I can find. All the information I have, I can get you more on that if you need. It's just
No,
a
that's-
refund of,
It's a refund money posted,
right.
whatever. I didn't understand what it's a refund, court ordered refund, I assume. Is that what you're saying?
That's what it looks like,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Before 367. Know where I'm at here. Against a question mark, I should have listed what they were.
Same page.
Yes. Under District Court, DMC Technology Group, Second District Court, Fall 24, upgrade blind draw application.
What page was that one on?
4, I believe,
Page 4.
number 367.
Oh,
It's under district court.
I don't have a 360.
Where do I have, just had it here, now I lost it. Yeah, under district court, 367 DMC Technology Group Incorporated.
All right, let me look.
Oh, I see, 360, okay. $325. Yep.
Yes, yeah, that's it, but I don't,
It's fall 2024 DCS upgrade blind draw application. I don't know what that is. I can get that information for you.
page 6, I believe. 15286. Jones out county driver reimbursement, and I saw several of those. What are we reimbursing for out county driving?
So that is Department on Aging, they're where they drive people out.
So anywhere in the county effectively?
Yeah,
Okay, all right. That explains. 14, public defender off, well, never mind. I had a discussion about that. We're paying for antacid tablets.
No, we are not. That is being reimbursed back to the county.
Okay. That's all I have.
Administrator,
I'm fine.
page 12, prosecuting attorney, Brueggemann turned in a phone bill for $3,600.
yeah, with $3,600. That's a good question. I will
I thought it was,
answer that.
nobody knows anything, you know.
Is that covering a number of months? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I could look at, see what exactly it paid.
So we pay their office phone bills?
Yes,
Total.
Go ahead, Shannon.
We do pay a number of things for the Bergman office under the 4D contract with the prosecutor's office.
Okay, so that's probably, and it's probably a collection of months.
But that's what I'm thinking. With it being
Right.
$3,600, we would need to verify that, but that's what I'm thinking. It's covering a number of months.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the only other one I had is the Underwood Law on page 14, Public Defender Conflict Service probate, $9,100. I take it, the rest of them give us like individual names. I take it that's a collection of names. I hope it's not one account.
No, we are trying to get them to give more individualized invoices. And I think that the invoice itself is individualized, but we want it to come on a more regular basis so that we don't have these large invoices hitting all at one time.
Good.
So that's, but yeah, that's for representation.
And a little more explanation, keep it out.
Mhm.
And I think those are the only ones I had, so.
If I might add to the phone bill that you brought up, I actually brought that one up also to Paul, and being District 4, that reminded me, I believe that's also reimbursed.
Okay.
At a percentage, not
Yes.
100%, but there is I think 66% reimbursement rate on that.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, any other questions? If not, a motion would be in order to approve the accounts payable vouchers.
So moved.
Support.
A motion by Commissioner Collins, supported by Administrator Murphy. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Accounts payables are approved, and we'll move into other business, and I will turn it over to Administrator Murphy.
So this is the year-end accounts payable meeting where not only do we take care of any accounts payable, this is the time when we take a look at our general fund revenues and expenditures, as well as our non-general fund revenues and expenditures. It gives us an opportunity to be able to look at departments where maybe we had more revenue come in than expected and others that did not have as much revenue come in as expected. And we can, within the funds, move funding around so that we assure that we do not have any funds go into a deficit by the end of the year. So the finance team has been working, looking at all of the year-end accounts payable meetings that you've had. The last one, making sure that we have the latest accounts, not only accounts payable stuff, but the payroll information, their projecting information going into January that's going to be coming back into 2024. And so what you're going to have is a presentation by our finance director, Dan Zamolzak, as well as our budget analyst, Tracy Stace, as they go through some of the work that they've been doing, looking at those individual line items and making a recommendation for year-end transfers. I will say before we get into it, it does get a little bit confusing. I know you've been provided with a detailed list of those accounts that are being adjusted. The PowerPoint will be more of a summary, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask because we want to make sure that you're comfortable with all the adjustments as we move forward. And if that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Samolzak.
And a couple quick questions first. Excuse me, Mel. So, and once we do these, does it have to, this does not have to be approved by Ways and Means. This is the.
Ways and Means provided the Accounts Payable Committee with the ability to make all year-end adjustments as recommended. So the recommendations are coming to you. Your actions today will finalize those one way or the other, whichever way you decide to move with these. We will put a copy of the year-end adjustments in the Ways and Means packet in January so that all commissioners can see what was done. But at that point, there's no action required. It's just informational on there for them.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to say thank you for allowing us to meet 2 days before Christmas here to go over this. We wanted to get one last payroll in from last week and also this account payable run that you just reviewed. So we have as many actual expenses in the system as possible, hopefully to then clean up as many of the adjustments as we needed. As Administrator Murphy mentioned, we're going to go over just the highlights. And I'd like to just remind you that we're going to be approving off your detailed sheet and not off this PowerPoint presentation. But if you have any pet funds, pet departments you want to ask about that are not part of the highlights, absolutely feel free to ask about them. So the other thing I wanted to mention is not only are we going to be amending the funds, but we also have to amend the financial statement captions. So for example, we might have the courts, but then under the courts are circuit court, probate court. Those also all have to be in balance so that we're not cited in our final audit report. So that's what we're hoping to do. I think I got this to where it will advance, maybe not here. Try this. This isn't going down now. All right, Jim.
So you're in the Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
You
Oh, I
want to
wondered.
minimize them. Okay. Let's see, okay. And escape. And then now when you hit your down button.
All right, that can do also
Yep.
the enter button. Okay, thank you. So we've got two parts to this, the general fund, and we'll review the revenues and expenditures, and then the non-general fund, and we'll do the same thing in that regard. So at this point in time, I just wanted to highlight that as amended, currently our revenue budget is 37 million, as well as the expenditures And we're going to add, which is column 3, $947,000 to the budget to bring us in balance to the final amended, which is not quite $38 million. So, and this does represent a balanced budget. And we're going to now go over the major highlights on the revenue side. And at this point in time, I'm going to have Tracy go over some of these major highlights.
Quick
Yes, sir.
question. Could you back up one slide, please?
Yep.
So we're going to balance it with a proposed judgment of 947,542. And that money comes from where?
What you're seeing there, the reason we're doing that is because, and that's what they're getting ready to go into, is we have received excess revenue than what we originally budgeted. So that's where those revenues have come from, and they're getting ready to go over that. So you can see where those funds are coming from. And then correspondingly, the expenses, they've got quite a detailed report that they'll be talking about where those expenditures need to go, so that the final overall budget is actually reflective of that increased revenue that we received, showing a $37,981,000 budget.
Very good. Thank you.
So for example, if you were to look at your detailed sheet, you'd see the first fund would just be general fund. Again, we will be skipping over some of those departments because it might be just a minimal amount, and we will kind of reiterate that at the end of the general fund presentation. So again, if you see us missing a department that you wanted us to discuss, we can go back to that. Okay, so major highlights, you can see we have that $947,000 that we're going to increase, and I'm going to let Tracy cover these as we go through.
So we're looking at the general fund budgeted adjustments, December, the general fund. The top portion is the revenues. So we're looking at district court. We're adjusting those down. We had overestimated on the court-related charges. And then if you move down to the treasurer's office, we're adjusting to actuals. For most of these, the property taxes, we received more than anticipated. The marijuana tax, we're anticipating to receive more there. The tax for the local community share and the state liquor tax, those, sorry, the local stabilization share, we actually reduced that a little bit based on what we actually think we will receive. And then the state liquor tax, we think we'll receive an additional amount there. Our interest earned on investments, we're adjusting that up closer to the actuals. And then we have a gain on our investments. So we are estimating a $200,000 adjustment there. Next, we will go to the elections division. I know you guys are all aware of the early voting that was going on. There were many expenses, and you'll see that when we get to the expense side. All of these are reimbursed when you see the expenses. If they're not reimbursed from the state of Michigan, they'll be charged to the jurisdictions. I've been in contact with the elections department, and this is what they're anticipating to receive. The state, I believe, has one more reimbursement coming back, and then they can bill out to the jurisdictions. Down to the prosecuting attorney. We're adjusting that. Those are the cooperative reimbursement and the crime victim rights. Those are both grants that we are adjusting to. Let's see, so the sheriff, we did a couple adjustments there. The state revenue sharing, it was new for the sheriff's department division this year for the public safety. So we are adjusting to the actual there. And the reimbursements for salaries and fringe benefits, that is for,
Training,
I'm sorry.
training.
the contracts, the reimbursable. So anything that's reimbursable, like your MIS, your fare, the contracts we have, we actually have more expenses, so we're adjusting the revenues to match those expenses. Other financing sources, that would be the very bottom line there with the revenues. That is the amount, when we presented the budget, we anticipated to spend from fund balance. We are not needing to use fund balance at all, so this is us taking that out of the revenues. And then your other departments there, that's kind of a mix of the individual line items that you see here. We're just adjusting the actuals so that we can correctly report for our
There,
year-end adjustment.
there are several smaller dollar amounts that basically balance it out to 77,100, and that represents a little less than 8% of the entire revenue budget. So as we went through the highlights, you could see we went through a lot of them that we didn't include. For example, circuit court, the very first line on your revenue sheet was $7,600. So rather than going through each line item, which is why we're asking you to approve the detail for this presentation, we're just giving you basically the highlights. So we'll now go to the expenditures. Before we do that, are there any questions about the revenue, or maybe something that'll come up as we go through this? But
I'm clear.
okay.
I'll be interested in seeing the expenses on the election side versus the income.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, so the expenses, we are looking at district court. We're making adjustments for personnel. A lot of that is health insurance. You'll see, as you look on this list there, if you see the health insurance adjustments, if employees change plans during the year, a new employee starts, that changes that health insurance amount. So we, adjust for that when they're large amounts. The friend of the court, I believe that they had a portion of the year that a position was open. So we're reducing some personnel expenses there along with the health insurance. Information technology. This is for the subscription-based IT arrangements. This was the GASB 96, Matt, did I say that correctly? It started last year where we have to make adjustments for service contracts that we have that are over 3 years.
Oh.
So there was also an adjustment on the revenue side for this.
So we didn't
Dan may be able to explain those adjustments more.
have that information when we budgeted.
No, we did not.
Correct. Last year was the first year that we had to create this entry, and it's basically a paper entry. But the Governmental Accounting Standard Board believes this entry more fairly presents a governmental entity's financial picture. So it's basically accounting for future costs in today's, in today's dollars.
I just want to add to that, and Dan is absolutely correct. When you are listening to the audit annually, you will usually hear at the end of the audit kind of a summary of here's things to come. And they will continually reference different GASB pronouncements that are on the horizon. So unfortunately, a lot of times when they are coming in, they're not something that we had budgeted for because we don't know what they are yet. We're still learning what that pronouncement's going to be about. So we sometimes are working in arrears, if you will, with that. So as we get through the audit, now we understand, as we get through our budget into the year, we are starting to recognize how that GASB change reflects our numbers here so that you can see them. So as we go forward, we will be including those things in the budget. But this just happens to be the SPITA, but every year there seems to be another pronouncement that comes out. I mean, there was a number of years ago when local municipalities all of a sudden had to identify and quantify their underground infrastructure and the value, what's the value of the roads, what's the value of the piping, what's the value of all that sort of thing that are underground. And those were identified because those are truly an asset of the municipality. So those are the things that continue to come out of the Governmental Standards Board. And this is just one of them that had to do with IT technology agreements. So I don't remember what the next ones are coming forward, but as they come forward, we comply so that we continue to have a good audit.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The next department I'd like to draw your attention to is the equalization. We reduced some of the wage and insurance line items there. And then now next is the elections. This is where we're adjusting to the actual. Some of this did cross years. They started purchasing stuff in 2023. They've received some of that from the state, so it may not be a one-to-one match for the expenses and the revenues. Just so you're aware of that.
Do we have a handle on elections? Okay, and looking at this, when you talked about the additional income coming in and now you're looking at additional expenses, do we have a handle on balancing where we are in early elections, or is that like next to impossible to do?
Are you asking the question of, do we have any idea of, in budgeting going forward, what the early election portion is costing the county? Is that the
Correct.
question?
That's correct.
I think that we are still looking at that. I don't think that we do have an answer. Partly it's going to depend on whether the county continues to be the entity that handles those early elections on behalf of municipalities. And if we are, how many municipalities are we doing it for? Are we doing it for all of them or half of them? That's going to affect somewhat our cost. It depends also on the election that we're talking about. The general election is always more costly than some of the local elections that we may have to run. So I think that it's a learning experience. We will go off of the data that we have as we project into the future, but it's going to take us a while to get accustomed to what we can expect. I think at the same time, the state is looking at the way elections are going to be handled going into the future, and those could also play on our budgeting and what that looks like. We're hoping that the state continues to refund as we go through this change, but that's yet to be seen also.
I'd just like to add to that, some of these expenses will not be reoccurring. So some of it's the setup cost.
Sure.
I don't have that list. I know Michelle and
basis.
Roxanne do, but so just so you know that the expenses may not be as high. The voting equipment, stuff like that they had to purchase. The prosecuting attorney, I'm sorry. Building and grounds, we're doing a wage adjustment there as well. Like we're reducing
Excuse me.
amount
All right.
spent there. So then there's the legal counsel. We had to increase that by $60,000.
Question for
Sure.
the budget adjustment for building and grounds. Does that be an anomaly? I mean, that's not part of the budget adjustment. The wages increase from the studies.
That's due to positionings and.
Right.
Those adjustments are typically from people coming and going or positions being left unfilled. We're not actually reducing anyone's wages or anything like that.
Yes, that's what I'm
So, I do
Line
want to
item.
clarify that as we go through here and you're seeing adjustments, and maybe referenced to wages or health insurance or something like that, we are not reducing any benefit to the department in any way. We are continuing it on our wage and compensation study. The increase is designated and we are also carrying through on health insurance. So reductions are because of employees coming and going.
The lower,
and
coming in the lower.
may come in at a lower rate, may have left at a family insurance plan, come in at a single. There's a lot of variables that go into that, but no, we are not negatively impacting any of the employees or departments in the county.
Thank you for clarifying that. So the prosecuting attorney, you'll see the same situation there. The paid leave payoff, that is when an employee leaves employment and they have a big paid leave balance. They get paid out for that. So they had a couple of employees that were a long time that had left. And then, of course, the insurance, they've had employment change. So that's what the adjustments are there. The public defender. This is, so in this division, a portion of it's grant reimbursable. So part of their wages for 2 employees were not being in the system, in the Tyler system, expensed to the grant. So we were making adjustments and Tyler, which is our accounting system, to account for the actual wages that we would get reimbursed from the grant. So that's why you're going to see a lot of negative and then positive and other wages within the public defender division there. Also, they have a lot of attorney fees. So we had to increase a couple of line items there for that. You want to?
Yeah, I just want to comment on that one too. I think some of what we have going on with the public defender's office too is we had some changeover in personnel, and that those personnel one particular individual was the one that was handling a lot of the grant information. And so when that person left county employment, our office to kind of took over some of the grant responsibilities to make sure that we were staying in compliance. And then we also were having to work back with the department to get some information. And I think through that process, we were able to identify some gaps in the way things needed to be accounted for. And so I think that's partly what you're seeing here. I don't know that we were properly accounting for all the expenditures that we actually did have in the appropriate places. So we are accounting for those now, and I think going forward, you will see a tighter budget on that.
Go ahead, Terry.
So if your office assumes some of the work that heretofore had been done by a public defender employee covered by the grant, is the cost to the employees from your office covered by the grant?
No, the part that we actually had an attorney who was doing the grant stuff. It wasn't a separate reimbursement for administration. This person just happened to have dual responsibilities. So their wages would have been partially reimbursed by the grant, but the administration of the paperwork was not part of that reimbursement for them. So we will be working with that department once they settle in, because they have had a number of personnel changes, and have them start taking a bigger role in their grant again, just like all the other departments. We do not have the bandwidth in our office to be a centralized agency for the administration of all 130 some county grants that we have.
Really?
So we do as a central service office, when one of our departments finds themselves with an employee gone that might have had some sort of finance or grant responsibilities, our office does pick that ball up and run with it until we are able to train individuals to jump back in, and then we'll hand it back off.
So part of the public defender's office is grant funded.
So the public defender's office has effectively two sides. They have a criminal side and a family side. And both sides do receive grant funding. The reimbursement is different on each side. The family side, it's a 75 county, 25 grant reimbursement. On the criminal,
5 county, 25 state.
correct. Or federal, yeah, whichever one was state or federal, but yeah, it's a lopsided grant, but there is some reimbursement coming back. And it's not just for salaries. There's a few other operational items that come back. On the criminal side, that's the grant that you've heard us refer to as the MIDC grant. That is close to, I think, 100% in reimbursement there. It is whatever if they budget for things, those things are covered, but there may be a few things outside of that grant budget that we do pay for. I don't have that exact split right now, but the MIDC grant, though, does carry the majority of the criminal side of the office, which is, quite frankly, the larger side of the public defender's office.
Okay, thanks.
So the next department would be the sheriff's department that we'll draw your attention to. This one, you'll see where the overtime reimbursable, the actual overtime, those adjustments were made for the reimbursable on the revenue side. Some of the other wages, the 110,000, that's a reduction. They did have overtime, I believe, were they short? And the actual sheriff's department, did they have employee turnover as well?
The sheriff's office always has employee turnover. Yes.
I just.
Not for any negative reason. I don't want that to come across
Right,
wrong.
no.
But they are our largest department and have the largest number of employees. And when you have a department that large, you are going to have people coming and going. And so you do see that here.
They also have their security equipment and supplies. We had to add additional budget amounts there, and their vehicle repair. They had quite a few vehicles that they needed repaired this year. So there's a large adjustment to that as well.
Does this portion of the budget reflect the 911?
No,
So the overtime.
That'd
would
be none.
separate from this. Okay,
911 is a non-general fund.
okay, that's right. I'm sorry, yeah.
So the court bailiffs, their wages, we had to adjust there for extra security over, I think they had some high profile cases this year that they've had to have more security there for. So we are adjusting for that. The jail, we have just minimal changes within the personnel for adjustments there. So go ahead.
So then going to the other departments, we basically had $1 million worth of adjustments on the expense side. The other departments that we did not highlight brought that down $45,000 or roughly 4.5%. So the highlights that we covered effectively reflects 95% of the changes that we're proposing. And there's still one more set of amendments here that Tracy will talk about here regarding the contingencies.
So let me just quickly, and I know the administrator's office and accounts payable watches these all year long, but if you look at all of these adjustments, basically there's an explanation for why we're having to adjust them. We either got grants in or something happened. I mean, we haven't had anybody that just abused their account and said that, they had a line item for $100,000, but they decided to spend 200 and buy.
Correct. Mhm.
I just want to, and I'm glad you brought that up for clarification, especially if anyone's watching. A couple different things I want to mention. First off, within the finance department, specifically in the budget analyst position, Ms. Stace, she does monitor all of the budgets on a monthly basis. And she sends out reports to each of the department heads on a monthly basis to say, here's where you are within your budget to actuals. And she's monitoring those to see if there's any sort of questionable, like, why is there an anomaly here? Why is this expense up or why is this revenue up compared to where it should be? To try to get some of those answers going forward. We have talked about that going forward next year, we would like to be able to bring budget adjustments to the board a little bit more often than what we did this past year. We have tried that the last couple of years, but our office has been in a bit of transition with staff moving from the finance company as our finance director to an actual finance director. So we've got a number of things going on. So we're hoping that this next year we'll be able to bring budget adjustments to you a couple more times so that the number that we have to make at the end of the year is reduced somewhat. We did bring, I think, some of the non-general funds to you in November, I think is when it was. Isn't that when we did that, Tracy?
Yes.
So you'll see that that's reflective here. We didn't have that many changes, but quite honestly, the non-general funds, specifically the health department, is one that they operate almost 100% on grants, and those grant amounts and expenses are continually to change. So if nothing else, you will probably at least see those budget adjustments coming forward on a fairly regular basis next year. So
That's a great. Have we always done that for years, or is that something new where we're monitoring it and sending them out updates on a monthly basis?
this is newer. In the past, it was kind of left to the departments to monitor themselves. Unfortunately, we recognize that the other departments get busy doing the work that they do. And quite frankly, monitoring their budget to actuals is not the highest thing on their priority list. They get busy with their day-to-day activities. So now that we have settled down in our office, Ms. Stace has made that a priority, that she has been working with each of them to make sure, number one, they know how to run the reports in the event they want to run them more often than she's talking to them about them. And making sure that they understand what their budget is and how they need to work and live within that budget. So it is newer for our office.
That's great information.
If I could add, in my previous employment, obviously I administrated the budget and I did get monthly reports, much as you're addressing. And they're of immense help because you wouldn't get, absent that, you might get 6 months down the line and realize, oh my God, I've got 6 months to go and I've only got 12 cents left in that budget. Whereas with the monthly statement, to start making either some kind of adjustment or go back to the commission or whoever the arbiters and say, because of certain circumstances beyond our control, there has to be an increase, decrease, whatever. But if you're doing this, God love you, because they're of immense help to, at least in my opinion, to the administrators, the departments.
It's been fun to watch the departments grow. A lot of them don't know what they're doing with the budget. They have their specialties. So me coming in and explaining that to them,
Right.
they have really grasped onto that. And some of them, it's just, it's neat to see them actually understanding more than, they have in the past. Just like you said, oh, I only have that much left. But, you also have to consider I'm this far in the year, I have this much to go. So, explaining that to them that, you need to project what you're going to spend.
Sure.
Has really,
Great
I
work.
think they've done a great job.
Thank you.
So in the 2024 budget, we budgeted for contingencies. totaling $1 million. And, those are divided up into general, admin, and personnel. We did not need to use that money, or, take from the contingencies. So that amount we are proposing to be transferred out to the capital fund. In addition, there's 7,000 for the law library that they had a new subscription base for their law books that and they talked to the administrator's office about in the middle of the year. So we needed to fund that a little bit more.
Hmm.
So I will turn it back. Do you have more questions on the expenses?
Not currently. no.
Okay.
So this is just a recap of that first slide before we got into the detail. And again, I was going to also ask the same thing. If there are any questions on the expenditure side or the revenue side, maybe there's an account that, we didn't think was much of a highlight that maybe you do. So before we go into the non-general fund, this is my first time through. So do we approve both at the same time, or do we do the general fund amendment first?
That is actually up to the committee, but in the past, they've just made one motion to approve all general fund and non-general fund adjustments.
Let's do them
But we can do it
separately. So,
however.
motion would be in order to accept the proposed adjustment.
I would move we approve the general fund of budget adjustments as listed.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Collins, supported by Administrator Murphy. Discussion. I think you've done a great job of laying this out for us, and I appreciate it very much. I mean, it's very easy to follow. I love the fact that you're sending monthly updates out and getting the departments involved and knowing where they're going. I can remember, if you go back 20 years ago when Kim and I first came here, or longer, departments at the end of the year would have this big number, and they were trying to save it to carry over and add to that big number, but it was kind of interesting. So this is, it's great having them more involved in the budget, but great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we'll go to the non-general.
Yeah, we need to actually vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Adjustments are approved.
All right, half the burden off our backs.
There you go.
Lifted, and so I was ready to get into the other half. We've got the non-general fund. This will look slightly different than the general fund, but I think just as easy to follow. So we have our current amended budget of 42.2 million against expenditures of almost 42 even. So we were projecting a $234,000 surplus. Through our adjustments, we will be adding $1.8 million, almost $1.9 million more in revenue than in expenditures, and we'll get into how that happens for a final surplus in the non-general fund of about $2.1 million. So as you can see on this slide here, almost all the departments, the funds listed have a corresponding increase in revenue and expenses, except for the opioid settlement funds, which contributes in part to that large increase on the surplus side. And with that, I'm going to give it back to Tracy to go over these first five items.
So the first fund is the disaster contingency. This is where the Department on Aging direct care worker extra pay. It's a grant that we receive. This money goes in and out through this. So we're just adjusting to actuals for that.
So what page are you on?
I'm sorry. So we've switched over to the non-general fund budget adjustments.
Right.
And it's at the bottom of the first page, Fund 258.
Okay, I'm with you.
And I will try to say that as we go through these.
Got it.
Okay. So on the next page, Fund 261, that's the 911 service. This is where we're making adjustments. They purchased some controller equipment and software. They were approved to purchase a vehicle. And then we're adjusting for service contracts that are higher than they anticipated for the budget. One of them being Motorola and the other one are Tyler Software. The next one is our drug law enforcement. That will be Fund 265. This was a forensic workstation that was purchased. So adjusting the actuals for that. The next one is the Homeland Security, which is Fund 274. This is Craig Tanis's grants. This is reimbursable costs. They just run through the grant, so we're adjusting for actuals to that as well.
I have a question on the Homeland Security.
Sure.
Much of the items purchased by that are a year, 2 years, sometimes up to 3 after the grant has been awarded. So do we show the grant as revenue when it's awarded or when the funds are spent?
When it's awarded. And I don't know, Matt may be able to,
And then expenditure comes later.
Correct.
yes.
Okay.
So the next fund would be the 280, that's secondary road patrol. That they purchased accident investigation equipment. And then the final fund to bring your attention to is the opioid fund. That's the amount of revenue we have received to date for that. The revenues for that are coming in. There's a schedule.
Yeah,
And-
but they're irregular for the most part. As we have, and I think I mentioned this at Ways and Means, as we have new companies settling, they reach differing types of agreed to pay, and then they come in different amounts. So it's almost impossible to budget. We do have a schedule now, so those that are on our books, we know what their schedule looks like. We may not know exactly the amount coming in, but we have an idea of when to expect funding.
And there's no corresponding increase on the expenditure side for this particular fund. It's currently accumulating and at some point in time, then we will determine where that money will be best used for the community. That also represents a large portion of that surplus that we're increasing in the non-general funds.
We do have a budget amount in there for 2025 for that. So the next is the capital projects. And this one we are, that would be on your final page, if I can get it apart. Just adjusting to approvals or projects, the capital fund is changing. So we just adjust to that. As you see, the proposed revenue adjustment, that includes that 1 million. If you look at the contingencies there, the transfer in for the appropriation, we've adjusted that by 1 million.
So that's basically that $1 million that the general fund brought into the capital project. So it circles back into the non-general fund here to be used again for future capital projects. And that's, I think, a very, not unique, but a very judicious use of funds to try to accumulate some money for potential future projects. So Going down to the, all the other funds that we did not highlight. This represents roughly, we covered about 90% of the non-general fund budget. All the other funds basically represents 10%. And if you look at the revenue against expenditures, we're looking at about a $2,500 increase in that regard. So there's a lot of ins and outs in all those other funds. But so when we come back, you can see we $1.8 million in increased surplus in that adjustment column, and that's the opioid money plus that $1 million. Pretty much everything else washes. So if there are any other questions, or if there are any questions on the non-general fund budget amendment proposal, we could try to answer those now.
Questions?
None.
A great job here.
Excellent job. Excellent job.
All right.
Thank you.
Motion would be in order.
I move that we approve the non-general fund budget adjustments for 2000.
Support.
I have a motion by Commissioner Collins, supported by Administrator Murphy. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Adjustments are approved.
Okay.
Great job by the group.
Excellent. Well
Thank
done.
you.
If I can.
Yes, absolutely.
I do want to say, I really appreciate the effort that they have put in. This is the first year to be able to, with the staff, to be able to present to you these budget adjustments. I think that they did a great job in putting the PowerPoint together. I think that always is helpful to see kind of a high level summary so that they can explain it that way. And I want to say thank you too for all the work that you guys have been putting in, especially these last couple of weeks. So, thank you.
Tracy's done a great deal of work on this. She's been living the budget for quite a while. And I think she's even going to have a side of budget at her Christmas dinner this in a couple of days. So
It's great to have a great team there to support it, and you've done an admirable job of getting yourself up to speed here too, Dan, so we appreciate it. Tracy, thank you very much. The rest of the team. Okay, back to me, I guess. Is there any other business to be brought forward to the accounts payable?
I have none.
Any public comment? Hello out there. Hearing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Collins, supported by Administrator Murphy. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, no. We are adjourned for 2000.